Yes. What the hell is wrong with you? What the hell is wrong with you?
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Hope everybody survived the cataclysm that was the solar eclipse today. Did not get to see it here in the great northern regions of North Dakota, as it was cloudy and rainy all day, so I missed out. Hopefully those of you who had view of it got a chance to see it, all that fun stuff. But after all the talk of mass chaos, everything else, everything seemed like pretty uneventful, but is what it is. Again, apologize for last week. Monday, I was sicker than a dog, so that's why we had no Ryno's Rants last week. And then Saturday night, due to having 50-some-mile-an-hour winds for most of the day Saturday, apparently my internet service provider took a dump on me, and I could not even hardly surf Facebook, let alone do a podcast. So we apologize for no show last Saturday. We will be back Friday night this week, live again, Lance and I, with the Vikings Uncensored Studio show, so make sure you're here for that. But it ain't Friday, it's Monday. So with that, we got Ryno's Rants back again tonight. So a few interesting things going on in the NFL. Of course, you've got posturing and smoke screening and all this other stuff. You got the New England Patriots out there doing their best to drive the asking price for the third overall pick up through the roof. 1 week they are in completely on J.J. McCarthy because they think the Vikings want J.J. McCarthy. Then the next they are in on Jayden Daniels. Then they may not take a quarterback at all and stick and pick Marvin Harrison Jr. at 3 and all that kind of fun stuff. But wins the basketball championship tonight. Nick, I have no idea who is going to win tonight, and honestly, I have not. Can you hear me now? James says he cannot hear me. Can everybody else hear me? I want to make sure everything is working here fine before we get too far into it. UConn versus Purdue. I don't know what. I haven't watched an ounce of college basketball through the March Madness and all that stuff. I don't know that I'll watch any tonight or not, but I'm going to go with Purdue just because closer to the Midwest than UConn is, and UConn is, UConn wins a lot of basketball stuff, so we'll go with Purdue. But anyway, we're not. This isn't basketball uncensored. This is football. So a very interesting thing came out over the weekend with Doogie Wolfson from KSTP and Score North Purple Daily contributor had said that of course the Vikings have done their private workouts with pretty much all of the top 6 quarterbacks, J.J. McCarthy, Drake May, Michael Penix, even Bo Nix. Hopefully it's just due diligence there. You guys all know my my opinion on Bo Nix, but we won't get into him too much. But apparently shortly after, right after LSU's Pro Day, the Vikings were supposed to have a private workout with one Jayden Daniels, and got canceled / postponed / whatever. And then Doogie Wolfson came up with an interesting comment that kind of caught some fire over the weekend, was that Daniels' camp is split on even bothering to meet with the Minnesota Vikings because they are so convinced that Daniels is going in the top 3, that the Vikings will not even have a chance to pick him. Nick, I'll get to that one in just a minute. To me, that is, I'm not liking the way some of these players are starting to come into the NFL with this entitled attitude. First, we saw Caleb Williams, not releasing his medical records to any team he does not meet with, and then canceling his top 30 visit with Chicago, even though he's going to end up in Chicago most likely. You've got Marvin Harrison Jr. not even taking part in his pro day. Now you have at least the camp of Jayden Daniels not wanting to bother with doing private workouts for teams not picking in the top 2 or 3 because they are so convinced they are going second overall to the Washington Commanders. Now, after this kind of caught exactly GMAC, the NIL and all that stuff has made this a lot worse. Nick, he was in Chicago this weekend. They did get that going. It was an original thing. There were some scheduling conflicts. It wasn't I'm not going to go interview with the Bears. It was stuff didn't work out. But on the Jayden Daniels thing, whoever is giving these kids this, the advice on this stuff, they're leading these kids down the wrong path. I mean, what happens? Okay, they think that the Commanders want Jayden Daniels. Maybe they've been told by the Commanders that we are staying at number 2 and we are picking you. But good evening, Dave. But what happens if sometime between now and the next 17 days, Washington comes to realization, hey, they watching more tape on Drake May or J.J. McCarthy or whoever. And they're like, maybe we'd be better off with this kid than Jayden Daniels. And Daniels falls to 4 or 5, right where the Vikings might be moving up to pick. Now, I think that these guys, I mean, I don't know that if Jayden Daniels fell to the Vikings at 5 or something like that, that they would pass up on him just because he hasn't done the top 30 interview. I mean, they watched him at his pro day. They watched him at the he didn't do anything really at the combine, but they've watched the tape. They've done all this other stuff. But it's still a bad look. You've got some of these guys like this and that, I'm going second overall, so I don't need to go talk to anybody else. Again, and I don't know that this is the kid himself, Daniels, because after a lot of this firestorm started, Doogie had to come back out and issue a kind of an addendum to what he reported earlier, that there is still interest for Daniels to play for Minnesota, but they just don't know. They're not expecting to fall to where Minnesota's picking. Neighbors thinks that Daniels might be reunited with a homie where he ends up via Instagram Live with Daniels for what the hell that's worth. Yeah, I mean, the only homie that he'd be reunited with at that level, a level of where they're going to be picking, I would assume in the wide receiver room or, something like that, would be Minnesota. I mean, you got Justin Jefferson sitting there, former LSU player, of course. Jamar Chase and the Bengals are picking too high up to have any shot at him whatsoever. But, Ayuk and JJ are the only homies. Brandon Ayuk, 49ers are picking 31st. There's no way in hell they're getting Jayden Daniels. But, and the Vikings still have time. They may still get a private workout with Daniels, and I know they want to. I've heard from multiple sources that the Vikings like all 3 of these guys, Daniels, May, and McCarthy, well enough that if they're down, they'll take any of those would be comfortable drafting any of those three. So if the Vikings can only get up to 4, and it goes Caleb Williams, Jayden Daniels, J.J. McCarthy, they'll take Drake May at 4. If it goes May goes 2nd, McCarthy goes, or Daniels goes 3rd, and they'll take McCarthy at 4 if they can get that point. And Kwesi made a comment a couple of weeks ago, or it might have been Kevin O'Connell, I forget which one it was, but about, I think it was Kevin O'Connell actually, falling into the trap of falling in love with just one player and not doing your due diligence on the rest of the ones in that same range. It's a very poorly kept secret that the Vikings are very high on Drake May. They brought in people with a history of working with him. Kevin O'Connell, the Vikings allegedly have been looking at Drake May since he was in high school. J.J. McCarthy, the same thing. The Vikings have spoke very highly of him. He spoke very highly of his private interviews and workouts with the Vikings. The wild card is Daniels. There hasn't been a whole lot of discussion now. Like I said, behind the scenes, it sounds like he would still be interested in playing for Minnesota if that opportunity arose. They just don't believe it's going to, which leads me to believe the number 2 pick is probably off limits. And to be honest, Jayden Daniels to Washington I've been expecting that one to happen ever since the Commanders hired Cliff Kingsbury as their offensive coordinator, because Daniels is going to fit into that air raid style offense that Kingsbury ran with the Cardinals and his run in college, ran like kind of last year with Caleb Williams. Stop praising. Oh, I'm sorry, Jared. Yeah, you're right. Drake May is, well, speaking of that, let's go back to Nick's comment from earlier. Merrill Hodges' comments on WCCO talking about one Drake May. Merrill Hodge made the comment that Drake May is a quarterback that is going to get people fired. Now, on the list of NFL experts that I trust as far as quarterback evaluation, Merrill Hodge ranks below Rick Spielman, if that tells you anything. He has been far off wrong on every different quarterback thing he's done the past several years. I mean, a few years ago, he talked about how Justin Herbert was going to be a bust, and to be honest, I thought he was too. But I'm not a highly paid NFL prognosticator either. He is. Hodge got hit except for Manziel. Yeah, last time Hodge pounded the table, wasn't it, with Manziel? Yeah, he thought Johnny Manziel was going to be one of the all-time greats. He also thought, and Easton Stick was going to be high. He was higher ranked than pretty much everybody else in that class. I mean, I love me some Easton Stick, but he's a backup quarterback and nothing more. Exactly, Dave. And if the GMs and scouting staffs are watching Ryno's Rants tonight, welcome to the show. If you want any insight, hit me in the private messages, and we can hook something up later. And my people will talk to your people and that kind of stuff. Merrill Ant, good evening. Merrill Hodges, too many hits to the head. Yeah, that's true. I think we should all prepare ourselves for disappointment on draft night, just in case. The fandom of perpetual sorrow is the Minnesota Vikings. GMAC, we all know that. I am fully expecting, I'm expecting the Vikings to be able to move up. But the problem is where are players going to go? I'm pretty much convinced, like I said, Jayden Daniels is probably going number 2 overall to Washington. And if he does, I have heard multiple times that the Patriots are not big on Drake May. Now, knowing that the Vikings are high on Drake May, that to them saying that they're not that high on Drake May, to me, seems like that's probably more truth than fiction. Now their director of player development, player scouting, whatever, Elliot Wolf, has come out saying multiple times he's a big fan of J.J. McCarthy. So I could excuse me a second. Residuals of my sinus cold. Sorry. I could actually see a scenario where J.J. McCarthy gets drafted by the New England Patriots. And unfortunately, if he does, I think he's going to fail miserably, because the New England Patriots do not have the support staff. They don't have a support staff around to make any quarterback successful. I mean, excuse me. The Patriots would be much better served getting multiple draft picks, filling up. They need wide receivers. They need a tackle. They need a ton of stuff. And drafting a quarterback with none of that around, we've talked about that I don't know how many times. That's how so many of these young rookie quarterbacks fail, is they come in right away. They're expected to carry the team when you have no support structure around them. They end up getting killed, like David Carr, for example, down in Houston when he first came out. He got sacked so many times. He was so gun-shy that he was never the same again, even when he left and got to a team that didn't have a god-awful offensive line. How comfortable are we calling the Giants bluff? So hung up on picks 3 to 5, but I feel JJ will be available in the 7 to 11 range. So I'm assuming the Giants are full of it. Riley, I fully believe that the Giants are full of it. To G-Mac's point down here, Thorne Eistrom said that the Giants can get out a big chunk of Daniels Jones's contract next year. They're tied into him through 2024. I believe they can get out from underneath his contract for only a $22 million dead cap hit next year. So the Giants could conceivably go after McCarthy or whoever at pick 6. But there again, who is he going to throw to? You have Darius Slayton, who is right now the number 1 wide receiver for the New York Giants, and he is at best number 2 on most other teams in the NFL. You've got Darren Waller, who has not decided if he is even going to play or not. So that leads it to a point where, if the Giants stick and pick where they're at, and the first 4 or 5, or quarterbacks go in the first 4 or 5 picks, you're going to have a Malik Neighbors. You're going to have a Rome Odunze. You're going to have a Brock Bowers, all sitting there, very talented, top of the class pass catchers that the Giants desperately need. And say what you will about Daniel Jones, but part of the reason why he has not succeeded is because he has not had jack for weapons around him other than Saquon Barkley. And Saquon Barkley is gone now. Yeah, I'm not touching that one, Dave. I'm over and done with that guy. I'm not talking about him anymore. So Trevor Lawrence is a perfect example. Yeah, Jacksonville was ass cheeks when they drafted him. They've gotten better, and along with that, Trevor Lawrence is getting better. He's still not the can't miss next great thing that everybody said he was coming out of the draft. We're going to see that Same thing this year, I think, with Caleb Williams. Everybody, he's been the consensus number one overall pick for the last 2 years. And we all know what happens to quarterbacks in Chicago. And again, I've made my thoughts perfectly clear on how I feel about Caleb Williams. I think he's got the highest bust potential out of anybody in the top 4. I think he believes his own hype. I think he does not handle adversity well. And I believe that there is a very strong chance that he is going to flame out in Chicago. Now, the rest of the guys, it all depends on where they go. The Commanders, they have a little bit of stuff. I can see Kingsbury making it work with Jayden Daniels there. You've already got Terry McLaurin. You've got some weapons there. The New England Patriots have nothing. If they're going to stick at 3, they'd be better off taking Marvin Harrison Jr. than they would be taking a quarterback. Now, they would be even smarter to trade with the Vikings, get 11 and 23. You could still get probably one of the top tackles in the league if you worst case at 11, Alt or somebody like that. And at 23, you can get another impact player. And then you roll around, top of the second round, you could still potentially get a Bo Nix or somebody like that. But yes, it is a very long-running joke. Giants are going with Neighbors or Dunze. That would be my guess, and I think that the entire quarterback thing is a smokescreen because they know Minnesota wants a quarterback. And if the Giants say, hey, we're going to go get it, we want one of these quarterbacks too, we like J.J. McCarthy or whoever, they're betting on the fact that the Vikings are going to try to jump ahead of them just to be on the safe side to get one of the big 4. And after that, that pushes the wide receivers down. I mean, if they move up to 4 with the Cardinals, Harrison Jr. goes 5 to the Chargers, the Giants have their pick of anybody else. Who are they trading for? Chargers are in the same division. Yeah, the Broncos are not trading with the Chargers. There's no way in hell Harbaugh would trade within his division. The same way with Oakland or Las Vegas, coming up. They're not going to be able to get there. The sweet spot for them would be Arizona, and the Vikings can outdeal them. I know there's talk about throwing in Patrick Surtain on the sweeten the pot to go up there, but these guys are still only having one number 1 draft pick, one first rounder this year. The Vikings are giving you 2. 2 first-round picks this year are way more valuable than a first-round pick this year and a first-round pick next year because you know what they are. The first-round pick next year, the Vikings could be picking 23rd on their own. They could be, picking 10. You don't know. So, and they're not going 0-17 regardless. I don't like Bo Nix, but they would not go 0-17 with Bo Nix. So just no. Ted Glover suggested San Diego could tell Arizona they will let them trade back up to 5 to keep Denver from getting a quarterback. That's entirely possible as well. Arizona's already got two first-round picks this year. If they trade with Minnesota, they would have 4. So yeah, trading back up to 5 would definitely be a possibility. I mean, there's still that thing that they talked about. The Vikings doing a 2-jump trade, trading up with the Chargers to get to 5, and then trading up again to get to 3 with the Patriots or something. There's so many different options out there yet that, the next 17 days leading up to the draft, it's going to be nothing but posturing, nothing but smoke screens, everything like that. I fully believed earlier when the Vikings first made that trade with the Texans that they were going to make that trade and jump up to the top 3 right away. but it's not looking like that's going to happen. I think that the Vikings have at least handshake deals in place with multiple teams in that top 5. With potentially with New England for all the posturing that they're saying and everything else. That could be a smokescreen to try to drive, keep other teams at bay to not be calling whatever. But in fact, they have a handshake deal with the Vikings that, hey, if you guys don't like J.J. McCarthy, we do. If McCarthy falls to 3, then we'll trade with you. If for some reason Drake May, if Drake May goes second and Jayden Daniels falls to 3rd, apparently New England does like Jayden Daniels, so then they would take Jayden Daniels. Then that would move the Vikings back to a secondary handshake deal they may have in place with the Cardinals. There's so many different options and everything else out there that it makes it interesting. Good evening, Nympha, one of the Filipino fan club. See us trading with the Chargers. I think that's a very possible landing spot, and I still think that they would try to get with the Cardinals first. So giving the Cardinals having 4 first-round picks this year, that is a dream scenario for them, and I think that's very. If I was the GM, Monty Austin-Fort down there, I would be extremely intrigued by the opportunity to have 4 first-round picks. You can rebuild half a roster with 4 first-round picks in 1 year, and that's what they need. You could trade back up, like was mentioned earlier, to get a Marvin Harrison Jr. You could get a Malik Neighbors or a Rome Odunze. You could get a Brock Bowers. You could get the top defenders off the board, Jared Verse or somebody like that. Multiple different players, Quinton Mitchell, some cornerbacks. So many different holes can be filled with those 4 first-round picks. Well, yes, yeah, you're right, Reggie. Yeah, they've got 2 right now. They give us 1. Yeah, you're right, 3. Regardless, good evening, Purple Gang. Don't know why the Pats taking Marvin Harrison Jr. isn't a talking point. You think they want a can't-miss guy like that? You would think so, Ryan. That has always been my thought, that would be the first landing spot for Marvin Harrison Jr. once we knew that the Bears were trading Justin Fields and going with Caleb Williams for the most likely. Cost of giving up an established player. Could O'Neal be a piece? Draft someone this year, save on the cap down the road, maybe save 25's number 1. The thing is, if you do that, you're going to have to draft a tackle at some point in time in the draft. I wouldn't be opposed. Brian O'Neal, I would trade if necessary. Except for the most part, there really is the only person on this roster right now that I deem 100% untradeable is Justin Jefferson. And we still keep hearing all the crap about Justin Jefferson being involved in trade stuff, and I don't believe it. The Vikings have flat out said time and time again Justin Jefferson is not going to be traded. I believe what they're saying more than I would believe Rick Spielman, who, of course, was a 2-bit used car salesman at general manager. Denver is taking Bo Callahan. I had to watch Draft Day last night. It's on Peacock. I finished watching the WrestleMania festivities and switched around and saw that on there. So I had to sit down and watch that last night. Harbaugh can keep Denver from trading up in that scenario. And I think that would be something Harbaugh would do. Cardinals get R11 and 23, then trade back up to 5 with the Chargers. Chargers get 11 and another first. Everybody wins. I'm good with that, G-Mac. I'll do that deal in a heartbeat. Cup of Joe Mama. Hey, a new guy tonight. Good evening. Vikings need to wait until the draft to have a trade in place. Too many smoke screens going on. I don't think the trade will take place until whichever team it is on the clock at this point. Month ago when we made that initial trade, I thought it was good and they had something in place. But I also don't think Kwesi makes that trade unless they had plans in place to make that jump up. Good evening, Dan. Don't think we should trade next year's number one. I'm at the point, I don't really care about the draft picks. If we can hit on that quarterback, the guy that's going to be the leader in the future of this franchise for the next 10 to 15 years, if it takes next year's number one, I don't care. I'd like to keep it, yeah. I'd like to be able to get by with just giving up the 2 this year in order to move up. But if we have to give up next year's number one, I don't care. Do it. You go get your guy. I'm at the point where I am so tired of the Vikings playing it safe or wimping out because, oh, well, what if we fail on this? I would rather them go down in flames, failing spectacularly because they swung for the fences, than pussyfooting around and sitting back there and, oh, you know, what if we do the wrong thing? If you're scared to do the wrong thing, you're the wrong guy for the job. I'm sorry, you are. Reggie with a crazy scenario. Vikings can't trade up, and the top 10 players are all offensive players. And Williams, May, Daniels, and JJ are all gone. You could end up with the best defensive player, and possibly Penix or a top offensive lineman. That is a scenario, and that is a scenario that they have to prepare for. That if something happens and they can't, that's why they took the whole crew out to work out Michael Penix and Bo Nix. You know, doing that due diligence in case the nightmare scenario happens and they can't get moved up to get one of those top 4 guys. You know, I think there is a possibility of Michael Penix, but if you do Michael Penix, I know there's talk. Okay, you get Byron Murphy or somebody like that, but if you get Penix, you have to go interior offensive line as early as you possibly can, potentially at 23 if you can. You know, if a center like Jackson Powers Johnson's still under it, you take him, because that's been the knock on Penix the whole time, other than the injury history, which I'm not that concerned about anymore. He's had the full bill of health. He was healthy for 2 years at Washington, but he doesn't deal with interior pressure that well, and we know what Bradbury does, so that's a very poor scenario. So they're going to have to fix that if that's the route they end up going. Cardinals fans thinking they're going to get 3 number 1 for 4. It's asinine. I wouldn't completely rule it out, Riley. I don't. That's overpaying, but we already know we're going to have to overpay. Kwesi's prepared to overpay if he has to be. Quinton Mitchell is a dude. Would love to see him in purple. I don't want to draft a cornerback. I am so damn sick and tired of drafting cornerbacks that don't pan out. It's annoying. 11 is too high for Verse. I've seen Verse going in that range. I don't think he's going to go quite that high because to Reggie's point here earlier, I think there is a very likely scenario that the top 10 picks are all offensive players. You figure you've got 4 quarterbacks, you've got 3 wide receivers, there's 7 right there. Brock Bowers, a tight end, that's 8. And you got a couple of the offensive tackles right there. It's very likely that the first 10 guys are all offensive players. Good evening, Norspheus. Going to see what kind of a wheeler and dealer Kwesi is. Absolutely. Spend enough draft collateral on a cornerback, time to develop what we have. Absolutely, and that's part of the reason they brought Shaq Griffin in ahead of time, so that it's not a need. And there are still guys out there that I think could be brought in after the draft when it doesn't screw with the the compensatory pick formula. What's his name from Miami is still sitting out there. I think there's a very good chance he could be brought in. He's got history with Flores, so there's that. Good evening, Mo Kamara. I like me some Kamara also. Guy in the mid rounds that I think might be worth a look. We still need depth at edge rush, so definitely an option. if we strike on a quarterback like May or McCarthy, how many wins do you see us getting? I think year one, you're a 500 team at that's probably your floor. I think we're a 500 team with Sam Darnold, to be honest with you. The offensive weapons that we have on this team are enough, and I love the changes that we're making on the defense, getting younger, getting these faster, more versatile guys in there. I think a 500 record should be at least – that's the floor, I think, for this year. That should be at least the goal. Chop Robinson, 11 is way too high for Chop Robinson, Ant. Xavier Howard, thank you, Ryan. I can never remember his name for some reason, but he's out there. But speaking of defensive players, the second guy I want to talk about tonight is Texas nose tackle Devondre Sweat, who over the weekend was arrested on suspicion of driving under the influence. I understand accidents happen and stuff like this, but dude, you're 3 weeks away from the biggest job opportunity of your life. Do not do stuff like this. I mean, now, I guess I haven't seen the full police report, but I guess there was an accident involving 2 different vehicles. And to Sweat's credit, he stayed there after the accident. The guy that was driving the other vehicle apparently got out and took off on foot right after the accident. So there isn't much on there. Norris Fierce, just quick recap on that. Doogie Wolfson, KSTP down the cities, had made a comment that at least part of Daniels' camp does not think that they need to even bother with meeting with the Vikings because they are so convinced they are going second overall to the Commanders. So that was kind of the sting on it. So that was part of the reason why apparently they didn't get their private workout done right after LSU's pro day. But they're still Daniels has interest in playing for the Vikings. I think it's more people in his camp that are kind of pushing it away from this. Good evening, Doc. Better late than never. Reggie and Ant got to do a show. That would be interesting. I might sit down and watch that one. That would be interesting. Norris, can you take the red, the blue pill? You get purple, the matrix. There you go. Young and dumb, one Sweat made a mistake. I agree on that, Dan, and that's kind of the point I was getting at. Now, is that going to hurt his draft stock? I think it probably will to a point. I hope that my chair doesn't fall apart on me, and it wouldn't hurt my feelings at all to see Sweat take a little bit of a tumble because of this. And excuse me, as it sits right now, I wouldn't take him higher than pick 108. I honestly wouldn't. Mainly because that's the first pick the Vikings have after the first round, and I still love me some Devondre Sweat. That guy is a beast, and I would love to have him at the nose tackle. Already questions about Sweat's ability to stay in shape. Getting in trouble this close to the biggest moment of his life is a concern. It is, and I think there are going to be some teams that are scared off by it, and I think he will take a little bit of a tumble. I mean, there was a lot of talk of him working his way up into as a second-round pick. I don't think that he's going to I think the second round is probably out. Third round, still a possibility, but he could fall to the fourth round. We've seen guys do similar stupid things right before the draft that causes them to tumble, and this very well could happen with Sweat as well. And if he's there in the fourth round, I'm not thinking twice about it. I am taking him. But want Murphy or Newton more anyway. Murphy and Newton are more the pass rushing kind of guys. Sweat's a full-on nose tackle. he's 362 pounds or whatever he is. But he can get pressure off him. He's a Linval Joseph type big dude that's going to plug up the middle, and that's one of the keys to a successful 3-4 defense is having that big, bad son of a bitch up in the middle of the front line, and we don't have that right now. We got Harrison Phillips, who's a good player on his own right, but he's not a nose tackle. He's too undersized. He should be out on the defensive end. Round is a shape. Yes, it is, Dan. I've been promoting that my entire life, so not scared. I take reviews there. Me too. I think there would have to be a conversation with the kid about his life choices and making sure that he gets the proper guidance and that kind of stuff to not make these kind of mistakes again, especially when you get into the NFL. Even the guys get picked in the mid rounds, you can afford an Uber. How did Christian Boyd test? Numbers coming from Northern Iowa's Pro Day. Have not looked yet. I haven't heard either on that. Did he work at Iowa's actual Pro Day? He's from Northern Iowa, not the FCS school. I don't know if I would assume UNI had its own Pro Day, but maybe Boyd worked up on the other ones too, I guess. But Boyd is a guy I have my eye on in the mid rounds. We talked about defensive tackles, 2 weeks ago on the BU Studio show, and Boyd is a guy I've seen him play. He's from the FCS in Missouri Valley, plays against North Dakota State, South Dakota State, all those guys. So I've seen him play quite a bit, and he's a force in the middle. And he's a guy I've got my eye on in mid to late rounds. I would take a flyer on him as well. McKinley Jackson also, and yep, he did work out with Iowa. Okay, I hadn't heard that, but I think Iowa's Pro Day was today, wasn't it? I thought I saw something about Cooper DeJean and somebody else they showed some numbers up. True knows that Murphy Newton can still do the job. They do the job on the edges, yeah, but we still need a guy in the middle. And I wouldn't be opposed to taking both of them, honestly, but one of those guys and still getting a nose tackle in the middle, because I fully believe that we need somebody in that middle. Right now, our defensive line is a bunch of just guys. Harrison Phillips is the top guy on the list. We did bring in a few free agents that maybe can do a little bit, but there's still nobody that really strikes fear into the hearts of interior offensive linemen. Boyd, 38 bench reps, ran for good size, 328. I figured he would test well. The Jefferson kid from LSU, I haven't researched him a ton, Nick. I've heard, he's a decent player, and the Vikings tend to like getting players from LSU, so I wouldn't rule him out. We got Ja'Kalen Roy last year. Murphy visiting the Vikings today. Yep. He was there today. And there was a couple of other ones that were in there today, too. Quinion Mitchell, I think, was here today. And there was one other guy, too, but I can't remember who it was off the top of my head. What else we got here? McKinley's from Texas. Yep. Just saw it on NFL Network. 38 reps. Yeah, that is a pretty hefty workout there, knocking 38 reps. Like I said, the kid's a hell of a player. It doesn't matter some of that stuff, especially when you get in the trenches, what level of competition you played at college. If you're a good player, you're a good player. And Christian Boyd is a good player. And I would be more than happy with him as well. The three nose tackles I like are Sweat, Boyd, and McKinley Jackson. If I could get one of those guys, I'd be very happy. Don't draft the LSU center. He's terrible. He was the other guy, I think, Turner, that they brought in for a pro day this week or today. And yeah, he's not real high on my list. You've got the Frazier kid from West Virginia. He's going to go early, of course. You've got Powers Johnson, who's going to go early. You've got guys like Bo Limmer from Arkansas, Bordolini from Wisconsin, sorry. A few other guys, Drake Nugent from Michigan, all guys that are in there that I think the Vikings could at least look to upgrade at center sometime in the draft. They did bring Feeney in as the backup and competition, but he's bounced around and he's not going to be the answer over Bradbury, I don't think. I think we get Boyd if we trade up and get a quarterback. That's kind of my thought too, Reggie, is that defensive tackle is probably going to be the next pick, depending upon who's sitting there in the fourth round when we pick again. Say we don't go quarterback in one round, but in round one, what you guys go D with our 2 picks? I don't think I go defense with both of them, because I think that if they don't get one of those top 4, they probably still will look at excuse me, at a Michael Penix. I think Penix is on their board. Kevin O'Connell was kind of coy with him on Pat McAfee's show a week or so ago. It kind of led me to believe that they weren't. But then when you take the entire staff out there for a private workout, and they've been hearing rumors otherwise of them doing a fair amount of due diligence on Penix, I think he is a fallback option. Kieran is my late round offensive line draft crush, developmental tackle, but he's got the tools. I mean, there's going to be a lot of those guys they're going to be developmental stuff. Want Jackson at nose tackle in the Wisconsin center. Yeah, I like Bordolini. I think he's a realistic target for the Vikings in the mid to late rounds. The NDSU center, yeah, I haven't seen where he's projected to be taken. I think he's late round or undrafted free agent probably. Mason McCormick, offensive line late. Cody Mauck, NDSU, doing it in Tampa Bay. He played pretty well last year. Yeah, I love me some Cody Mauck too. The old red hair and the missing front teeth and all that stuff. And he's a great dude. Cody Mauck was a great dude. I would have liked to have him on the Vikings. But, wasn't meant to be. But are you from around the Fargo area, George? I'm an NDSU alum, so anytime anybody's talking to NDSU players, I get a little excited, but that's all right. Stick and pick Murphy at 11 and Penix if all 4 quarterbacks are gone. The problem is I don't know that Penix makes it to 23. I think there's a fairly decent chance that the Raiders could pick him at 13. I don't know if Peyton would take him at 12, but the Raiders have worked him out and have done a lot of work on him too. So I think I think if you miss on the top 4 and you want to take Penix at some point in time, you're going to have to take him at 11, I think. Bum Norse's name is in honor of Hank Williams Jr. Can make some great parodies. It's a Viking tradition to get ready for some school time. There you go. Bordolini is small. He's like 308, 310, something like that. I think he weighed in at. But it's not necessarily just the size. I mean, if Bradbury could get leverage, he'd be fine. He's shown that he could do it on occasion. The problem is with Bradbury, he just doesn't get the leverage. He's up. His pad level is too high, and people get underneath him. 6'4", 303. Okay, thanks, Riley. Grand Forks, UND Fighting Sioux. I was getting all excited, and then you have to come with Little Brother Junior College up north there. SDSU, Champs. Yeah, you guys you've deserved it the last 2 years. You guys built a hell of a team. I mean, you built the team to beat us, and you finally got it figured out. And all the credit in the world to you. As much as I hate South Dakota State, you guys are a hell of a team. Raiders, Broncos, and Seahawks all could take Penix before 23. I did listen to the play-by-play guy for the Seattle Seahawks was on Bumper to Bumper on KFan here last week with Justin Gard, and he was talking up Michael Penix huge, and he said he would love to have him on the Seahawks. So I mean, that's something there too. Penix at 11, Graham Burton at 23. I'm not a huge Burton fan, I guess. He may turn out to be a very good player, but I don't know. I'm just not super high on the kid. But again, haven't done a ton of tape on him either. But I got my guys I like. I love what I've seen out of Powers Johnson. And if you can get him at 23, I would take that in a heartbeat. Just watching what that kid did at the Senior Bowl and some of the stuff, when he's a converted defensive tackle. He moved over to center, and he's played very well. The guy is just an absolute mauler. Does he fit into the zone blocking scheme and stuff as much? I don't know. But he's going to protect your quarterback, and that's something that you need. Norsefius is not a fan of Barrero. I just listen to it because the only really stuff I can get up here is KFan, or on some of the stuff I can get at the same time of day. It's Colin Cowherd's show, and I don't want to waste my valuable time listening to Colin Cowherd. JPJ's a beast. Yep. And like I said, the Frazier kid out of West Virginia, he's another good. He's a second round probably guy. A lot of options. I mean, there are some good centers in this class, and even some good centers. Nugent from Michigan's another good guy center that's going to be later on in the draft that I think would be worth taking a look at. Not going to go too much into the centers because we will be talking about them on Friday's Vikings Uncensored Studio show. But so stay tuned for that. We'll keep that discussion for there. But back on it again with this, I think Sweat falls just from the stuff that happens. He is Reggie. I would like him too, but he's not going anywhere where we're going to pick unless we stick and pick at 11 and 23, and then you trade back from 23 into the early second round and pick up some more draft capital, which I could see happening too. I think if the Vikings do that, it's going to be a significant letdown for the fan base. The fan base wants a quarterback, and the Vikings want a quarterback. We all know that, but yeah, it's not even a close comparison. JPJ's up here and everybody else is down here. Not to say these guys are bad, it's just he's that good, I think. And he's a house. He's not gonna get bull rushed and forklifted into the third row of the seats like Garrett Bradbury does, we'll put it that way. Sweat will fall to the fourth. I think it's entirely possible, and I hope it does happen. Just selfish reasons, because as like we talked about before, I'm a big fan of the kid. Yeah, he made a stupid mistake, but he's also 21-year-old kid. I mean, I did enough stupid shit when I was 21 years old that I probably shouldn't be here right now. And you live and you learn. That's what happens when you're that age. I mean, we've all been there at one point in time. Not, excusing what he did, because it was extremely stupid, especially 17 days or 18 days before the biggest moment of his life, like I mentioned earlier. But, people make mistakes. And something like this, I can excuse a whole lot more than if he went and kicked the crap out of his girlfriend or something like that. That I'm not going to excuse. something like this, while stupid, you're young, you're dumb, you make bad decisions, you learn from them. Now that's the key. Can he learn from this, move forward, and not repeat it, or are you going to be, somebody who has a continuous problem with that kind of stuff? That's where the question's going to lie, and he's going to have to answer that question many times in the next 17 days or 18 days. But I guess we'll see what happens. But anyway, we've been going for almost an hour here. Didn't think I was going to have that much to talk about, but as always, you guys bring the comments, bring the questions, and get the discussion rolling. And that's why I love doing these live shows so much, because I can come on here with no notes whatsoever and talk for an hour, because you guys always bring a good discussion, intelligent conversation and civil conversation. And that's the thing I love so much about all you guys who follow us and all of the other content creators out there. We do this because we love doing it. We do it for you guys, and we appreciate the hell out of it every week. We got 87 people in the watching right now yet. If you haven't done so, though, on your way out, make sure you hit like and subscribe on the Facebook, subscribe to the YouTube, follow us on Twitter at Vikes Uncensored. I'm on there quite a bit, talking back and forth and that kind of stuff. Shout out again to the Filipino fan club, as always. Noy, Nympha, Sam, all you guys over there watching halfway around the world. Thank you very much again for spending time watching the show. Hopefully I'm teaching you guys a little American football along the way as we go. Again, you guys, thank you all for joining us in the chat every week. Can't tell you how much I appreciate it. But with that, make sure you stay tuned. Friday night, 6 p.m., Brunswick and I will be back live for the VU studio show. And then back, of course, next week with more draft discussion, and hoping to get some draft gurus on the show here at some point in time between now and the draft as well. So stay tuned for that as well. But with that, thank you again, everybody, very much for joining. And you guys have a great rest of your Monday. Go watch the NCAA championships if you're so inclined. I'm going to get myself something to eat, and we'll see you on Friday. Have a good one.